So I know you coach high performers who often feel stuck despite their external success. What's really at the root of like stuckness, and what role does identity play in personal reinvention?
Yeah, stuck can be looked at from a couple of angles. And, the main reason that people feel stuck is often because they lack the proper systems to allow them to really thrive. And I'll give you an example, right? If your sales are flat and you've hit a ceiling in your business, 9 times out of 10 is because you don't have a system to drive a sales process, an effective sales process, right? So if you have a system like a CRM and you're utilizing it holistically, fully, and you're putting opportunities in there on a regular basis and you're visiting those opportunities daily and you have a system and a process in place that walks you through every stage of that sales conversation, and you're following it by the book, usually there's a tool there that's available that's going to allow you to get unstuck from that side of things, because your success is only as good as your systems when it comes to business, right? And that's one example. So you want to take a look at where you're stuck, and there could be bottlenecks in your business, in your sales process that are creating that stuckness. That's the business side of things. But then there's the stuckness from a personal standpoint, right? And you bring up the word identity. And I heard this great story from one of my mentors. He had a practice in New York City in Manhattan. He's a chiropractor, all right? And he practices network spinal analysis as well, which is a really holistic style of chiropractitionery. And he had a woman come into his office one day. She's in a wheelchair, and she had a dream where she wanted to start walking again. Okay, that was her intent. She's like, I want to walk, but she'd been in that wheelchair for 20 years. Okay, and he worked on her for months and months, and finally unlocked, and she started to walk. Absolutely beautiful, right? And he's really proud of how far she'd come. She'd done the work, and a week later, she didn't show up for her appointment. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month goes by. She ghosted him, never came back. Okay. And he's walking down the street in downtown Manhattan, and who does he see? He sees this woman in her wheelchair, rolling around. And I share this story because that woman was feeling stuck and wanted to get out of the wheelchair. However, her identity was so tied to being in the wheelchair that she felt so comfortable there, right, that she decided to go back in. And that's exactly where many of us end up, is we end up in that wheelchair, and that we're comfortable in the chaos. We're comfortable in the wheelchair. We have identified ourselves as part of our identity as being that version. And getting through that, getting past that, takes a lot of work.
That is a transformational story that anybody should be able to learn the lesson of. Be careful when you're trying to get out of your comfort zone. Like, be reminded that you have to want that new identity. You have to want that. That's amazing.
Well, and your old identity, I mean, that's a part of you. That's what shaped you. That's how you got to where you are today. And that identity is going to fight for its survival.
How can leaders use burnout as a catalyst for transformation rather than a crash?
Yeah, it's a great question, because so many leaders, particularly entrepreneurs and owners of businesses, are wearing all the hats. They're stretching themselves thin. They don't leave much bandwidth left for themselves and for life. I was speaking with the owner of a manufacturing facility in Rhode Island last week, and she's doing 15, 16-hour days, back to back to back, 7 days a week, right? And what this leads to is burnout, and burnout often is a result of us not taking care of ourselves, right? Overworking, maybe not sourcing ourselves with hydration, nutrition, rest, all of those critical things, regular exercise, getting out of our chair, right? Imagine being sitting in a chair 16 hours a day. Ooh, right? So this stuff happens all the time. And uh, inevitably, if we treat ourselves that way, burnout's going to happen. And for me, I'll give you a personal story. I I burned out back in 2021. I was overtraining and to kind of premise the story, I mean, I was a successful sales leader. I have my beautiful family, own the house, all the toys that I could have ever imagined. Everything on the outside externally looked fantastic.
Mm.
But on the inside, I was running my music business, sales leader, overtraining in the gym, and quite frankly, one of the pain management techniques that I was using was called binge drinking. I was drinking a lot in the evenings and on the weekends to try to unwind, right? To unwind and whatnot. But it was doing more harm than good. And I was slowly reaching a breaking point, thinking that, if I was the first one up and the last one to bed every night, I can fit more in than the average individual. And my body shut down. I ended up in the hospital with what was called rhabdomyolysis. And this is a kidney condition where your muscles break down and the enzymes that come off of the muscles block your kidneys. And I woke up in the morning. I couldn't even stand up. I couldn't lift my arms, and I was pissing black like Coca-Cola. Right? It was scary. I was like, what is going on? I checked myself into the hospital. They diagnosed me with this, and they did everything in their power for 5 days, connected me to IVs to avoid kidney dialysis. Wow. Okay. And that's a result of me pushing myself too hard and hitting burnout, an extreme case of burnout.
Right.
All right. Well, your question was around how can you use that burnout as a catalyst of some sort, right? Rather than a failure. And for me, when I came out of that hospital, I realized that I needed to change. It was, look, what I'm doing is not sustainable. My wife made it known as well, right? She was very scared and terrified after the situation during. My kids looked me in the eyes, and I realized that I had to make changes. And that for me was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call to change my habits, change my routines, do things in a far more healthy way, which to me, if you want to avoid burnout, you need to have a system in place. Again, it boils down to systems. Okay. And there's 3 things you need to look at. The first thing you need to look at is your health and well-being. All right. Take care of yourself. Feed, drink, water, sleep, exercise, meditate, pray, all those things really, really good for you. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I got mine right here too. See? And if you can't take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself. It's that whole, you got to put your oxygen mask on before you help others on the airplane. Same idea, right? You got that locked down. The second thing you want to look at is know your numbers in your business. I'm talking to business owners right now.
Right.
You need to know what your goals and objectives are financially, what your profitability is, and you need to track where you are against those on an ongoing basis, right?
Yep.
Because you need to course correct. You've got to fill gaps. All of these things need to happen. And then the third thing is build the habits and routines around those first 2 so that you got this cadence, you got this flywheel of momentum that helps protect you from burnout because you're on top of your health and you're on top of your numbers. And usually when you start to burn out, it's because you're chasing and trying to fix things way too often, right? So use it as leverage to do better.
Amazing points. Think about business owners is we get wrapped up in the idea that it can't be done without us. Yeah. And that's the, the solopreneur route. Sometimes it feels that way, but that's where those systems, like you said, systems and processes in the background have to be there to support you so that while you may be a solopreneur, the business can run and operate certain levels without your attention for at least the time for you to be able to catch up. Those are amazing points. I love that. I knew this conversation would go in the right direction for many reasons, because I know I could just feel your heart around this. In this era of information overload, how do we overcome like the self-doubt that exists in teams today with the uncertainty that AI is bringing to the market?
Yeah. So you want to be unshakable as a leader, but it's fair to say most of us have those moments where the self-doubt creeps in, right? I call those the pirates, all right? The pirates, they start telling us things. You're not good enough. Your team's going to fail. Oh, you're going to go broke. All the things, right? But here's the thing. The pirates are thoughts. Self-doubt is a thought. We do not own our thoughts. Thoughts live out here, all right? It's a radio station, all right? So depending on what radio station you're on, you can pick and choose what do you want your thoughts to be. And if you're on the self-doubt channel, well, change the channel. Change the channel to self-belief. And it sounds easier said than done, of course. And that's where it's so important to build those habits and routines that I was talking about earlier around your health and well-being, because you can rewire yourself. You can, if you're tired, okay, the pirates are going to take advantage of you. But if you're sourced and rested and on top of your game, they don't stand a chance, right? Because when you're rested and well-fed and feeling like $1,000,000, you're not thinking about self-doubt. Most of the time you're telling the self-doubt to go take a walk, get out of here, right? So you want to take care of yourself and recognize that you do not own your thoughts, and you can change that channel any given time. All right. The self-doubt around AI, yeah, that's a real thing. Everybody's worried about AI taking over their job, their role. But AI is not going to replace you. Somebody who knows how to leverage AI will.
Very good. Yes. Great answer right there.
Yeah. So we live in a time right now where there are so many tools coming our way that we have this opportunity to learn. And you want to know how cool AI is? If you're worried about AI, open up ChatGPT and say, I'm worried about AI taking over my role. What can I do in order to protect myself and ensure that this doesn't happen to me? Oh, right. So leverage the tools. And this is where we are living in an era where artificial intelligence is just, it's in its infancy. So if we can start to include it in our day-to-day in the most simple ways, all right? Open it to ask questions rather than use Google, right? ChatGPT or Claude, okay? And now Google's Gemini is actually really good. So you're kind of using AI when you're doing a Google search now, right? But think of how you can use it to build those systems that I'm talking about in your day-to-day. So if your sales process has a bottleneck, talk to ChatGPT, explain to it, give it some context. You know, I'm in this business. Here's the bottleneck I'm experiencing. All right. I need you to act like a professional salesperson and create the most effective process for me to follow so that I can 10x my business in the next 24 months. Right. Yep. And it will come up with some really strategic things and the tactics needed to support it that will get you there. So if you're having doubt about AI, chances are you're not using it. Right? And that's where you need to shift and just start adopting it in the most minimal ways. Get comfortable with it, because if you're not, somebody's gonna spot that, and they're gonna replace you with somebody who's using AI. Not the AI is not gonna replace you.
Exciting, Chris. You're setting me up here. This is so good. All right. We're going to take one more question, and then we're going to just kind of let it go in there and go from give everybody a little something to take with them. something they can work with for the week. What's one belief you've had to let go of in order to evolve your own life or leadership?
There's a few. There's a few that come to mind for me. But one belief that I had to let go for me personal, okay, because I'm a business owner now, and I worked in corporate environment and in a military environment, and always had a job, right, hired by somebody. And to give you a little context around this, so my father, 35 years military, my mother, 30 years as a teacher, right? Growing up, it was, Chris, what are you going to do when you grow up, right? You need to have a career, you need to have a pension, you got to have your savings plan, your retirement plan, all those things, because if you don't get that, you're never going to be able to afford a house, start a family, and all the things, right? So the belief that I had to have a career working for someone always held me back, because deep down I knew I was an entrepreneur. And what happened was I labeled myself, as part of my identity, a side hustle guy. All right, I had my music business, but I never jumped into my music business full time, because my plan A was my corporate career, and music was my side hustle, and I could be successful on my side hustle. What I realized was that as much as I learned a lot in all these amazing careers that I had, that I am an entrepreneur at heart. And I had to let go of the identity of being a part-time entrepreneur in order for me to make that leap. And that was really difficult for me, because it was really entrenched in me from my childhood. Right? My parents said, you gotta have the good job, you gotta have the career, you gotta have, and I feel like everyone can relate to this, right?
Yep.
And it was terrifying, knowing that the reason why my parents said that is because of the safety behind it, behind the certainty behind it. Mm-hmm. And if you take the leap into entrepreneurship, well, there's a lack of security there, there's uncertainty there, and there's a big risk, right? So the story goes. So for me, that was a huge one, was letting go of the identity that I was a part-time entrepreneur, a side hustle guy, so that I could do this full time.
Chris, man, look, I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Please, if you're listening to this, like, share, let us know, put something in the comments, let Chris and I know, let this Chris know, and let that Chris know what we've got, what you took away from it, and, maybe what would you like to hear again? So that's it. That's what I've got. And Chris, I'll let you close out for your part.
Yeah. The systems and processes are critical to success, right? If you want to build the perfect body with the six-pack and the pipes, right, you've got to have a system in place where you're eating and you're dialed in on your exercise routine. Same thing goes in business. And you can say the same for your family at home, right? Having that great morning routine, having that great evening routine, having dinner with everyone every night, those kinds of things. So do it. Stay on top of that stuff. And if you want to learn more from my end, you can follow me on any social at the Chris Atwell. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, TikTok. I'm there. And thank you so much, Chris. That was a great conversation.
Yeah, man. Enjoyed it. This was excellent.